Hello guys, and welcome to a new Etheria restart video. Today I'm going to walk you through the balance patch notes the devs just announced. I will explain to you how it will affect every animus in the tier list. I have tested every single animus the game has with max stats and optimal builds. So I will give you my honest opinion, especially for people who are looking to re-roll during launch. So let's get this show started. First we have Khloros. They increased his S3 multipliers by 80%, which is really good. I have a showcase for him coming when the game launches, and I used him to solo DPS endgame PvE content. His damage was already insane. His only issue is, he can't be used in PvP easily because his Doom Toll effect takes a long time to activate his S3. But in PvE it's insanely strong because you can stack it easily through follow-up attacks from animus like Lily. So you'll find him easily spamming his S3 every 2 turns at best. In PvP, the only use for him is when they release a meta hero who revive and have a certain strong passive like Arbiter Vildred in Epic 7. When that happens, Khloros will be his best counter, because his S3 doesn't allow characters to revive when they die with it. So like I said, overall, this will make Khloros even more of a monster in PvE content. Next, we have Veronika. She was already amazing for all type of content because of her Soul Ward, which basically gives immortality to all allies for 1 turn. Her issue was that after stealing buffs from enemies with S3, she only had a 50% chance to grant them to your allies. But now it's a 100% chance, which will make her a top tier in PvP, especially for turn 2 players. Just think of her like Rin from Epic 7. Veronika is also a monster in PvE, because the most important dungeons have immunity on the bosses, and some can even keep buffing themselves like Tiamat. So using Veronika there will be super good. I also have a showcase for her in both PvE and PvP when game launches. Moving on, we have Mia. And before we go into her buffs, just know that she was the most broken support in PvP. Her kit is so stacked that you can use her in every single content. The only place that I didn't use her was against enemies who have the element advantage over her. She reduces allies' skills cooldown. She also increases all buffs durations on them. On top of that, her S2 strip 1 buff from all enemies and pushes their turn meter. Mia also heals and reduces debuffs duration from allies and grant shields with her S1. The devs reduced her S3's cooldown and increased her healing, so now she's even more of a monster. I also have a full PvP and PvE showcase of her when game launches for even before her buffs, so stay tuned for that one. Next we have Xiada, and she is a really good DPS for both PvE and PvP. Her passive allows her to grant up to 3 flames. The flames increases her attack and crit damage up to 54% attack and 30% crit damage. Her flames also reduces her S3's cooldown up to 3 turns. I have a showcase for her that I use as a single DPS to clear all endgame content and even PvP, and she is able to S3 every turn at max stacks. Her S3 also AoE defense break and deals additional damage for every flame she has. Her buff basically increased her additional damage, which may not seem a lot, but in long fights, she will solo DPS anything. Next we have Tiamat, and sadly she got a big nerf. Basically she heals herself even less now. But meta-wise, it's really healthy for the game, because this character can solo PvP and PvE. When game launch, I'm going to show you a PvP trick that you can solo cleave any defense with her. She is insanely strong and can wipe out teams by herself. She can be abused with counterattack set and follow-up attacks, because during her ultimate form, her S1 becomes a heavy-hitting AoE. So you can imagine her using S1 every time she counterattacks. She is a very OP character compared to everyone else. Moving on, we have Rahu. His kit is very unique and strong. He basically can tank and deals massive damage that scales with his defense. I have already tested him in beta with max gear, and he can solo PvP matches easily, especially when built with specific modules and shell effects. His buff gives him more damage and more defense to his Wrath effect. He is insanely hard to use and can defense break with his S1. So if built with counter set with high defense and crit rate stats, this character can solo almost everything with the right support, because his S1 damage increases depending on the defense difference between him and the target. Now they increased that damage even more. My Rahu was doing up to 28k damage with his S1 when defense breaking an enemy. Also stay tuned for his showcase. Next we have Lingluo, and she basically got increased chance to her cleansing before healing allies, or casting her Whale Prayer effect, a welcome buff for a free SSR character. Next we have Rosa, and she got a small nerf on her S1 that pushes enemies' turn meter. This is fair because, in endgame, you can abuse her S1 through follow-up attacks, which will allow Rosa to hit 3 times in a 1 turn, because the follow-up attack will not count toward her passive effect. So you can imagine the amount of turn meter her S1 will reduce. Up to 30% when used with a follow-up attack is huge, so this nerf is justified in my opinion. Moving on, we have Borgne, and just so you know, he is the worst SSR in Etheria Restart, and I have a video coming up showcasing him in PvP and PvE and explaining exactly why. His damage is really bad, so buffing his S3 gives me a little hope because during beta test, I gave him the best gear in the game and even landed AoE defense break on the enemies, and his S3 couldn't even get a single kill. I was only using him for his S3 strip for PvE content after that, so hoping this damage increase will save him PvP-wise. Next, we have Lilith. Just know that her kit is really good and fun, but her only downside is her low base speed. Her S3 into S2 combo is insanely strong in long fights. However, if she had more base speed, she would be more used because she can lock down one single target at the start of the match, because her graceful mischief detonates after 2 turn and pushes everyone's turn meter by 100%. This effect is really strong but hard to use in current meta. Lilith has no decent support that can benefit from her kit as of now. But in the future, and when more characters releases, she will be a top-tier PvP unit. Her buff increased her damage, which is only good for PvP, because her damage is a fixed amount based on her max HP. Next we have Kloss, and she is one of the best debuffers in the game and can work in any content. These buffs made her apply speed down effect on enemies when using her S3, but also removed the speed decrease on her hacking effect. This really doesn't affect her utility that much because the speed down effect is better in my opinion. Not to mention it counts as a debuff, so when using cleave setup with DPS that have momentum set effect, it will increases their damage further, because it grants him extra damage for every debuff the enemy has. Kloss is a very strong debuffer, and I'll be showcasing her for you during launch as well. Last, we have Freya, and she got a nerf to her turn meter reduction when attacking a debuffed enemy. Even though people were hyping this unit during closed beta, I have always considered her to be mid, because when you reach endgame content, you will find way better options than her for both PvP and PvE. This nerf will lower her in the PvP tier list only. I'm also preparing a showcase for her when game launches. These are my honest thoughts on the balance patch. Feel free to give me your opinions in the comments down below. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one.
怖くないです。
それ。
もう私の番。言って、ラビアさん。
時が来た。鉄幕の生き物も安らぐがよい。まあ見ていてください。あなたには償ってもらいましょうか。
私の友達をいじめないで。みーちゃん、一緒に頑張ろうね。やっぱりちょっと怖った。
遅い。今が好機。隙だらけだ。
悪いやつ、みーちゃんお願い。
焦らないで。もう
私の番。
時が来た。砕けろ。